The driver, a wiry man with a scruffy beard, leaned out the window, his face red with irritation. "Get off the damn road, I've got deadlines," he bellowed, slamming his hand against the door. Emily didn't flinch. She met the man's eyes. Across the Ducklings, the older man with the little girl, and saw the same resolve mirrored there. They weren't stopping. Not now. The Ducklings' chirps grew louder, more insistent, their little feet pattering against the pavement as they neared the curb. The smallest one wriggled in Emily's grasp, its beak nudging her fingers as if pleading to rejoin its siblings. The man hoisted his daughter onto his shoulders, and she giggled, her hands clapping in delight as the Ducklings teetered on the edge of the median. "Go, duckies, go!" she cheered. Emily set the smallest one down, her breath catching as it stumbled forward, its tiny legs wobbling but determined. It joined the others, their yellow bodies clustering together like a fragile constellation. Above them, a shadow flickered, a hawk, its wings cutting through the sky, drawn by the scent of vulnerability. Emily's pulse quickened, her eyes darting upward. The world seemed to slow, time stretching thin as the Ducklings trembling. Steps carried them closer to safety or danger. Then a miracle broke the tension. A cyclist, a young woman in her 20s with a bright red helmet and a backpack slung over one shoulder, skidded to a stop beside them. Her tires squealed against the pavement, leaving faint black streaks. She hopped off her bike, her face flushed with exertion and determination. "I've got this," she said, her voice steady as she unzipped her backpack and pulled out a battered cardboard box, the kind that once held grocery store fruit. "Let's get them somewhere safe." Emily nodded, gratitude swelling in her chest as they worked together. The cyclist knelt, her hands gentle but firm, coaxing the Ducklings into the box. They tumbled over each other, a flurry of feathers and soft squeaks, their panic easing as the walls of the box closed around them like a makeshift nest. The trio, Emily, the man with his daughter perched on his shoulders, and the cyclist, carried the box across the median and down a gentle slope to the edge of a small pond tucked behind the road. The water glittered under the morning sun, its surface rippling as a breeze swept through, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and wildflowers. Tall oaks framed the scene, their branches swaying softly, while birds, sparrows and finches, sang faintly in the distance, their voices threading through the rustling leaves. Emily knelt, her knees sinking into the cool mud, and tipped the box carefully. One by one, the Ducklings spilled out, their tiny webbed feet slapping against the bank. They waddled forward, hesitating at the water's edge, their heads tilting as if testing the unknown. Then in a clumsy, joyful burst, they plunged in together, splashing into the pond with a chorus of triumphant chirps. Emily's eyes misted over, her hand brushing her cheek to wipe away a tear that had slipped free. She thought of Lily, safe, in the car, and the fierce, instinctive love that had driven her to stop. The man beside her smiled faintly, his daughter tugging at his ear. "We saved them, Daddy," she whispered, her voice a melody of pride and wonder. The cyclist grinned, pulling out her phone to snap a quick photo of the Ducklings swimming in tight circles. "This is going viral," she said with a laugh, her thumb already hovering over the share button. "The world needs to see this." In that moment, a city, a sprawling, chaotic mess of steel, concrete, and ceaseless motion, became a mother. It slowed its relentless pulse, softened its jagged edges, and cradled something fragile in its arms. The Ducklings bobbed on the water, their chirps fading into the gentle hum of the morning, a sound as soft as a lullaby. They didn't just step into the pond, they stepped back into life, their tiny bodies carried by the current toward a future they almost didn't have. Emily stood, brushing the dirt from her knees, and glanced back at her car. Lily's babbling floated through the open window, a reminder of why she'd stopped in the first place. The man waved as he walked away, his daughter skipping beside him, her pigtails bouncing with each step. The cyclist slung her backpack over her shoulder, hopped on her bike, and pedaled off into the distance, her red helmet a bright speck against the grey road. The city roared back to life, cars honking, engines rumbling, the rhythm resuming as if nothing had happened. But something had. A small act of mercy had rippled through the day, touching lives in ways no one could measure. It left behind a Question, quiet but persistent for anyone who'd hear it. If it were you, would you have stopped? The brakes screeched against the sun-scorched asphalt, a sound so sharp it seemed to claw at the stillness of the early morning. A woman in her mid-30s sat rigid behind the wheel of her weathered sedan, her knuckles whitening as she clutched the steering wheel with both hands. Her hazel eyes, framed by faint lines of exhaustion, widened in shock. Ahead of her, on the cracked surface of the bustling city road, a cluster of tiny ducklings no bigger than the apples she'd packed for her daughter's snack waddled in a frantic, trembling line. Their soft yellow feathers fluttered in, the breeze catching the golden light of dawn. One of them, the smallest, lagged behind, its fragile legs buckling as it stumbled over a pebble, a pitiful chirp escaping its beak. Behind them, a grim trail of blood and scattered feathers marked the pavement, a brutal testament to the fox that had torn their mother apart just moments before, its amber eyes glinting in the shadows of the roadside brush before it vanished. The woman's breath hitched, a lump rising in her throat. She didn't think twice. Her foot slammed on the brake and the car shuddered to a stop. The city pulsed around her, a living beast of noise and motion. Horns blared in impatience, the distant rumble of traffic echoed like a heartbeat, and the faint rustle of leaves from the towering maples lining the boulevard whispered secrets of a quieter world. She pushed open the creaky door of her car and stepped out, her sneakers scraping against the gravel-strewn edge of the road. Her name was Emily, a single mother who'd spent the last 2 years learning the weight of responsibility. In the back seat, strapped into a car seat adorned with faded bunny stickers, her daughter Lily babbled softly, her tiny hands clutching a stuffed giraffe. At 2 years old, she was oblivious to the drama unfolding beyond the window, her world still small and safe. Emily's gaze darted to the ducklings. There were 5 of them, huddled close, their chirps rising in a desperate chorus as cars whizzed past, their tires kicking up dust and narrowly missing the fragile creatures. She waved her arms, her jacket flapping like a makeshift flag, trying to halt the relentless flow of traffic. A pickup truck roared by, its driver, a burly man with a baseball cap, leaning out to shout something drowned by the growl of the engine. Emily flinched but held her ground. Then she saw it. The smallest duckling, its feathers ruffled and patchy, veered off course. It darted toward the opposite lane, its tiny body a blur against the grey pavement. "No, no, no," she whispered, her voice cracking as her heart thudded against her ribs. She lunged forward, her sneakers skidding on loose gravel. Across the street, a man stood watching, his silhouette framed by the rising sun. He was older, perhaps 50, with greying hair peeking out from under a worn flat cap and tired eyes that carried the weight of years. In his arms he held a little girl, her pigtails bouncing as she wriggled excitedly, her finger pointing at the chaos below. "Daddy, look, baby ducks!" she squealed, her voice a bright thread weaving through the tension. The man's brow furrowed, his gaze flickering between the ducklings and his daughter's wide, pleading eyes. He shifted her weight in his arms, hesitating. He'd seen plenty in his life, accidents, arguments, moments of fleeting kindness, but this was different. His daughter tugged at his sleeve, her small hand insistent. "We have to help them, Daddy," she said, her tone firm despite her age. He sighed, a faint smile tugging at his lips, and set her down gently on the sidewalk. Taking her hand, he stepped forward into the fray. Emily and the man converged on the road like two halves of an unspoken plan, their movements swift yet careful, a quiet storm against the chaos. The air hung heavy with the scent of exhaust and the warm, earthy tang of sun-baked soil. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows that danced across the pavement. Emily's hands trembled as she knelt, scooping up the runaway duckling. Its tiny body was impossibly light, its warmth seeping into her palm as it squirmed, chirping faintly. "Come on, little one, you're okay," she murmured, her voice soft but thick with urgency. The man crouched beside her, his daughter at his side, her tiny hands waving like beacons of encouragement. "This way, duckies," she called, her voice ringing with innocent determination. Together they guided the others toward the grassy median, a narrow strip of green amidst the asphalt jungle. What would you have done? Stopped your day, your rush, your life, for something so small? The question lingered in the air, heavy and unanswered, as the city roared on around them. A delivery van screeched to a halt mere feet away, its horn blasting a furious warning.